Hi, Angus Pryor here, and I'm joined today by Dr Steve Snars. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Angus.
Now look, Steve's a dentist of some repute, and we were talking earlier about you've been a dentist for a long time, and there are certain cases that really stick in your head. And to be honest, when Steve told me about this one, I was absolutely gobsmacked. So as a little intro, somebody came in for a particular treatment believing they had something, and what ended up happening was something very different. Why don't you take us there?
Yeah, a patient, Brian, came in, and he'd been to his doctor, and he'd also been to a dentist as well, and he had a sore tongue from what he thought was a badly fitting top denture. He'd had that top denture adjusted, and it hadn't helped. And so I had a look, and his mouth was in pretty poor condition, but that really wasn't the problem at all. And I still couldn't see what was bothering by the tongue. And I got him to open his mouth very wide and saw the hint of something just at the back of his tongue. With a bit of a struggle, and this was a case where you really did wish the patient had a flip top head, we managed to get him open really wide and managed to sort of gently pull his tongue right out, and there was the biggest ulcer I've ever seen.
Wow.
On the back end of his tongue, just out of sight. And you could understand how perhaps with a quick look the dentist and the doctor previously hadn't actually seen this. But this was an ulcer the size of my thumb in the fellow's tongue.
And I think just while we're on that, one of the things I've learned from my dealings with dentists is that often people just assume it's just about the teeth, but the reality is you are the expert on the whole mouth, in a sense, aren't you?
Absolutely. There are people with all sorts of diseases which may manifest themselves with symptoms inside the mouth, and we're sort of trained to look for those sorts of things.
So what happened in this case?
In this case, I had to convince him that his real problem was the ulcer and not the denture. And he did insist he wanted that denture started as soon as possible, and I had to keep steering the conversation back to the ulcer. And I said, look, I think what we need to do is get you to see a specialist as soon as possible. And he sort of said, do you really think so? He said, well, what is it? And I said to him, and I can remember this distinctly, I said, I can't tell you what it is because I'd need a pathology report. But I can tell you what it isn't, and it isn't something you can afford to leave for another 3 to 4 months to see if it goes away. I had communication with the specialist who received him, who confirmed my suspicions that it was in fact a squamous cell carcinoma, a cancer of the tongue, and he was then passed directly on to Westmead, who took over his treatment. The surgeon at Westmead rang me, and he said to me, well, first of all, he said this fellow won't be wearing a denture anytime soon, and he had basically a large portion of his tongue removed. The best thing though was that they found it hadn't spread anywhere.
Okay.
And they'd gotten it in time for him.
Wow.
I ran into the fellow 2 or 3 years down the track, and he was really grateful that we jumped in and basically steered in the right direction and forced the hand to actually get something actually done about it.
And without being melodramatic, one could argue you had a role in saving his life.
We could have ignored it. We could have actually just made a denture, pulled out the loose teeth and done all of that, and still he wouldn't have been happy, and that might have wasted more than another month or two.
That's incredible. And I think, as you're saying to me, it's cases like this which make you go, all the hard work and your uni and all that, since that time, this is what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, I can distinctly remember it being hammered into us back at university, treat the whole patient, not just the teeth.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us, Steve.
Thanks, Angus.